You want to know what's actually crazy? For the last 100 years, we've been obsessed with trying to fix people who were never broken in the first place. Picture this. There's someone in your life. Hell, maybe it's you. This person turns down invitations constantly. They aren't depressed. They aren't sitting at home crying over some childhood trauma. They just don't want to go. And for decades, we looked at that behavior and treated it like a sickness, like a defect in the machinery. But it turns out, we were looking at the map upside down. See, psychology, especially back in the 20th century, had this obsession with fixing the odd ones out. If you didn't fit the cookie-cutter social norm, they assumed something was wrong with your wiring. You'd rather spend Saturday night reading a book than shouting over bad music at a bar? Red flag. You prefer having one ride or die friend instead of 20 acquaintances you barely know? Concerning behavior. The DSM, that's the big book shrinks use to label mental disorders, basically took everyone who liked being alone and tossed them into the same bucket. They used words like introverted, avoidant, antisocial, even schizoid. They made it sound like enjoying your own company was one small step away from living in a cave and throwing rocks at hikers. But here is the question nobody bothered to ask. What if they aren't damaged? What if they are just different? Let's pop the hood and look at what is actually happening upstairs. Your brain runs on a chemical called dopamine. You've heard of it. It's the reward system. It's the juice that gives you motivation. When something feels good, dopamine hits your brain and screams, "Do that again." Now, here is the difference. Extroverts, their dopamine system is like an old-school diesel engine. It takes a lot to get that thing moving. They need high-octane fuel, social interaction, loud rooms, flashing lights, constant noise. That is their premium gas. They can burn through that all day long and feel great because their engine needs that friction to wake up. But people who genuinely like being alone, their dopamine receptors are way more sensitive. It's not that they hate people. It's that they hit the red line on the tachometer much faster. Think of it like pain tolerance or spicy food. Some people can eat ghost peppers, sweat buckets, and ask for seconds. Other people take one bite of a jalapeno and they are done for the week. It's the same food. It's just a different nervous system. And here is the kicker. Research from neuroscience labs, places where they actually scan your head, shows something incredible. When people who prefer solitude are alone, they aren't zoning out. Their prefrontal cortex lights up like a Christmas tree. That part of the brain, that is the CEO. That's the boss. It handles planning, problem solving, self-reflection, and creativity. So while the world thinks you're doing nothing, your brain is actually running a massive, full-scale operation. A study from Durham University back in 2019 found that people who regularly spend time alone actually have increased gray matter in the parts of the brain tied to complex thinking and emotional control. You are literally building a better brain by sitting in silence. But hold up a second. Before you go self-diagnose and start planning your new life as a hermit in the mountains, we need to get real about something. There is a massive difference between choosing solitude and hiding behind it. Psychology has this concept called approaching versus avoiding. It's simple. Are you moving towards something you want, or are you running away from something you're scared of? Healthy solitude, the kind that actually recharges your batteries, comes from a place of fullness. You aren't avoiding people because you're terrified they won't like you. You're choosing alone time because you know yourself. You know what you need to function. There was a psychologist named Anthony Storr who wrote a book called Solitude, A Return to the Self. He looked at creative geniuses and found a pattern. Guys like Beethoven, Kafka, Wittgenstein, they weren't avoiding human connection because they were broken. They had rich, loud inner lives that needed space to breathe. Beethoven literally wrote in his diary, "I must live almost alone like one who has been banished." He didn't view it as a punishment. He viewed it as a necessity. The test for you is simple. Can you connect when you want to? Do you have people you trust? Or does the thought of being vulnerable make you want to bolt for the door? If you use solitude as armor to keep people out, that is different. It's not necessarily wrong, but it's a defense mechanism, not a preference. Let's talk about why this matters beyond just your personality type. Let's talk about results. Where do great ideas actually come from? They don't come from synergy brainstorming sessions. They definitely don't come from open office floor plans. And they don't come from networking events with stale cheese and warm wine. A massive study from Northwestern University looked at 65 million papers and patents over 50 years. 65 million. You know what they found? The most innovative, earth-shattering ideas came from individuals or tiny teams working in focused, uninterrupted silence. Steve Wozniak, the guy who actually built the first Apple computer while Steve Jobs was doing the talking, said it straight up. He said, "Most inventors and engineers I've met are like me. They're shy and they live in their heads. They're almost like artists. In fact, the best of them are artists. Solitude isn't antisocial behavior. It is deep work. It is the only place where your brain can connect the dots without someone poking their head in to ask a quick question." Here is something fascinating that puts this all in perspective. The way we look at alone time is totally cultural. It's made up. In Scandinavian countries, they have a concept called allemansretten. It translates to the right to roam. It is this deep belief that every human being needs access to nature and solitude. People build cabins in the middle of nowhere just to have a place to be alone, and nobody thinks they're weird. Look at South Korea. They've embraced Hanbap, eating alone, and Hansel, drinking alone. It isn't seen as lonely. It's seen as self-sufficient. They have entire restaurant chains designed for solo diners, with little individual pods and TVs. Meanwhile, in Western culture, we still treat eating alone like you're the main character in a sad indie movie about depression. The judgment isn't a universal truth. It is learned behavior, and if it's learned, it can be unlearned. Here is the plot twist that usually breaks people's brains. People who are comfortable being alone often have better relationships than the social butterflies. I know, it sounds backward, but think about it for a second. When you need someone else to make you feel complete, you show up to the relationship hungry. You bring neediness to the table. But when you are already whole, when you are comfortable in your own skin, you bring choice. And choice creates much healthier dynamics. Research from Dr. Bella D. Paulo at UC Santa Barbara found that people who are single by choice and comfortable with it report higher levels of autonomy and personal growth. They have meaningful connections, but they don't put all their emotional eggs in one basket. They diversify. You know what the strongest relationships have in common? Two people who don't need each other, but choose each other anyway. That is the difference. So here is what this all means for you. If you genuinely prefer your own company, you are not defective. You are not missing out on life. Your brain is just wired for depth over breadth. You are built for internal processing, not external noise. In a world that is constantly screaming, always be networking, always be available, always be on, the ability to just unplug and enjoy your own company isn't antisocial. It might be the most sane response to modern life. But check yourself honestly. Are you choosing solitude, or are you hiding in it? Can you be vulnerable when it matters? Do you have at least one person who really knows who you are? Because the goal isn't to be alone all the time. The goal is to be comfortable enough with yourself that you can be alone when you want to be. The healthiest people aren't the ones who need solitude or the ones who need connection. They are the ones who can do both and choose consciously. Next time someone asks why you aren't at that party, or why you canceled plans, or why you're eating lunch by yourself, remember, you don't owe them a dissertation on neuroscience. Just look at them and say, "Because I want to." And maybe, just maybe, they'll realize that is reason enough.